Many thanks for staying with KBC Channel 1. You are watching Biz Check and my name is Betty Kiptum. Welcome to the show. Let's get started with that conversation on the economic survey. And in studio with me already is Pauline Mwangi, the director at Ronald's LLP. And Pauline, welcome to set and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Karibu sana. Now, just to start us off, that 7.5% growth in 2021, what does that mean?
First of all, I think that you'll need to look at it like Kenya is not an island. We're in the global. We are a country in the world.
Yes.
So we need to evaluate ourselves based on how globally we have fast moved. And globally, we can say that despite the challenges of COVID, despite the many economic challenges every other country is having as a result of COVID, the world GDP has also grown by 5.9%. So when we narrow down to Kenya, we remember Kenya is an emerging market, meaning that we are at a point our potential for growth is higher than the normal countries who some have developed already, some have not developed. So that means when we evaluate that, we are able to a bit absorb the shock of things like inflation better because we are emerging, we are at a growth stage as a country. So with that, actually Kenya's GDP has grown by 7.5%, and in this case the major contribution to that growth is actually infrastructure. We can see a lot of infrastructure projects in our country, which when you look at it, I know the question people ask is, okay, they're saying that Kenya's GDP or the economy has grown by 7.5%. Where is it to the normal mwananchi?
Yes.
I think that's the biggest question. Where is it to the normal mwananchi? And it will come, it might not be directly, but it is there because we're looking at the big picture.
Let's just set the stage for this 7.5%. I mean, we are coming from a contraction of 0.3% in 2020, when our economy was battered by COVID-19.
Yes.
From that report, the education sector grew 214%. I mean, it was at zero, it was growing at zero. It was shut down in 2020.
Yes, exactly.
Accommodation and food services, the hospitality sector also contributed about 52.5%. From a negative 47.7% in 2020. Of course, that is big. That means that this growth of 2021 was largely contributed to by sectors which were recovering from COVID-19, yeah?
Exactly, exactly. That is true. And also, the economic survey has also helped us to see where can we go back. When can we go, at what point do we go back to pre-COVID? Because we want to now stop saying about everything is about COVID. We want to say that are we now on the right track? Because remember, we have agendas like Vision 2030. We want to achieve that. But then we have had a big bump with COVID. So we want to look at it. Where will we go? For example, Kenya is predicted that we will recover in 2023 pre-COVID, so that we go to pre-COVID levels. So we stop saying issues of everything is COVID, and you see that's where we are seeing a big change because we went really minus. Now we're coming back.
Let's just answer that question first for Kenyans to understand how there is a 7.5% growth, but the pockets don't feel like, there is growth. It's like the pockets are torn. What goes into the economic survey? What is looked at, for them to get these numbers?
Okay, we look, when they get to that number, they look at what can if I put it in layman language, you're looking at everything you have. The GDP, the gross domestic product, basically as a country, when we count our wealth, our investments, our in terms of everything that we have, it's like you as a household, you say I was worth 2 million shillings. If I count my cows, I count my car, I count my house, I have 2 million shillings. You go to the next year and say how much do I have? Has it increased or has it gone down? So we are looking at everything the country has, and we are seeing that it has grown by 7.5%. And it has grown because there are initiatives that are actually growing the economy. initiatives such as the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya for manufacturing. Manufacturing has seen a growth because of that. This is an agenda that was a strategy that was put in place in 2017 that we are actually realizing it now. We're realizing it in the form of the strategy is to ensure that our manufacturing our product we can export, but also we take our local products, and also the government giving incentives to manufacturing firms to ensure that raw materials are readily available. They are sourced locally. When they are sourced locally, then they are cheap. So first, there's always this notion that made in Kenya is very expensive. We want to change that. That strategy is actually to change that we can the way you'd want to wear Gucci, you'd want to wear something made in Kenya. So locally, materials, and also the same, can we export this? Are there incentives to export this? So that has been happening. There have been incentives to just ensure that the Build Kenya, Buy Kenya, Build Kenya is actually being realized.
While we are at the manufacturing bit of it, manufacturing contributed or grew by 6.9% last year. And you've said that we should get to a point where we want to maybe wear clothes made in Kenya the same way we want to wear clothes made outside. But one of the issues that is impacting the manufacturing sector in Kenya is the production cost. The production cost is really high. That ends up making Kenyan-made goods quite uncompetitive compared to even goods made regionally. Eggs from Uganda are cheaper than eggs produced here in Kenya. So is the government really true to its word?
In the bigger picture, it is, and the issue is that they just try to ensure that they can supplement where we are falling short, because it's also a growth. You see, sometimes you have to struggle when it's just like a new business. You struggle a bit when you're starting, but in the end picture, the overall picture, and we have seen a growth in manufacturing. We are looking at it. We have seen a growth in manufacturing overall from a GDP perspective. The contribution of manufacturing has actually grown in the last year compared to 2020. So it is giving incentives for manufacturing and giving incentives to local manufactured raw products. To the raw products especially, to
ensure that we are, value adding here in Kenya and just exporting finished products. Our value of trade, or rather our trade deficit, is still high. So that is one sector that can definitely support us. Another sector that saw quite some growth is the financial and insurance activities at 12.5%. Now, on that front, allow me to bring in the numbers about the savings and credit. Kenya, the use of savings last year increased to 74% from 69.9% in 2019. Kenya's saving rate is at 12%, which is low. The uptake of credit rose from 50.4% to 60.8%. These numbers ideally say that Kenyans were borrowing to either survive or to at least have some decent kind of life, now that things were very expensive or unavailable. What are your thoughts on that?
I think in 2020, as we say, things were very slow. Things were very slow. People were sort of locked up. There were no much activities. And even the people who had savings, they held them. You don't know. You're afraid what is happening. If I have savings somewhere, I will not invest. It was not the time for even investing. I will wait to see first how are we dealing with COVID issues. Then in 2021, things started opening up. Things started opening up. People had brilliant ideas in terms of just even business ideas. We can see a lot of self-employment SMEs. The smaller and even medium enterprises have really rose from the period 2020 to 2021, and it's because now the economy is opening up. The restrictions were lifted. Like we didn't have. We could try to go back to normal as much as we have not reached there 100%. again. And with that trying to go back to normal is where people said, I can do this, I can invest, I can borrow money to do a business based on an idea that I've gotten through COVID. But also there's some people sadly who also went down, who went down. They lost their jobs, and sometimes it comes as a blessing in disguise, in that somebody maybe lost their job. But I've had so many success stories of people saying, I lost my job, but I opened a something, something I've always wanted to do. I don't have the finance. Where do I go? I go and ask for credit. So there's been a lot of that also. Yeah.
So we are hoping that, do we hope that these numbers go up or down?
These numbers that we are going up, because we want to go back to pre-COVID, and we want to attain Vision 2030. So for me, even when I was listening to the minister, the CS, when he was reading this, he's very optimistic. Regardless of the inflation we have, the fuel engine, the fuel pump prices going up, we believe that we are positive. It's going to get better.
Yeah. Transport and storage, it grew by 7.2%.
Yes.
Kenyan households, however, did not really feel that growth because the transport index recorded a 12.3% inflation rate. It means Kenyans were paying more to either transport goods or, just move from one place to another. And the situation is not really getting any better because of the increased fuel prices. And yes, there is some, the large bit of it is international pressure, coming from outside. But also there is some contribution that the government or the Kenyan setup does have, with the taxes and all that. So how do you see the transport issue playing out?
I think it's a give and take in transport. First of all, infrastructure is for transport, like the most connectivity, the income, and what is invested in building the roads, building the railway, it goes into how can we reach the remote areas. We don't want areas where people are saying we are not Kenyans because you cannot reach there, or it takes you like 4 or 5 days, where a place maybe you could take 1 day to go. So with the opening up of connectivity all around Kenya, I believe that actually transport will increase, because goods and commodities will reach any other area that is due to reach. Yes.
Right. We are talking about the economic survey that was released last week. It gave quite some numbers about the Kenyan economy. And Pauline, one of the very important numbers here is the agriculture sector, that contracted to about 0.1% from 5.2% in 2020. Agriculture is really the one backing Kenya's economy. What does this mean?
Yeah, now you see, agriculture, our backbone as Kenya, and the backbone of our economy is from agriculture, and the unpredictability and the reliance on the rainfall has always messed us up. Like it has always been, this season was not good, this season was not good. But we are seeing the government coming up to just promote this by promoting irrigation schemes. Can farmers, and there's been even loans given to farmers, buy manure and everything. We always say that. But also the bigger picture is just can we have a sustainable solution that if rain does not come or we don't get enough rainfall, what can we do? So irrigation schemes are coming up to just ensure that we are stabilized. We stabilize this, and that our main source of funding or our main source of financing for our GDP is not affected.
I mean, in agriculture, there are very many factors to look at. There is the issue of the shrinking land size, and also the productivity per acre, so to say. I mean, in developed economies, you get that their productivity is maybe even 4 or 5 times higher than ours. I'm wondering what could go into that process to ensure that we get to those levels.
I think, in my view, we should capitalize on the land, because now of the shrinking land that you're saying, on the fertile. First we should put restriction of of inhabiting fertile land. That is one thing I believe we should do. But also we should take advantage of land that is unused, that is, if not even is not on its own, is not productive. Because we have like the north. If you look at northern eastern, I believe that the area can be agriculturable, in that we can look for ways, and with technology in this day and age, I believe anything is possible. We can look for a way that can we get land there and capitalize it. The other thing that I always joke to my friends, I think I believe in, we should also try to, I know we have gone county-wise, but then Nairobi is still the capital city, and we try to grow Nairobi and Nairobi area around, which in real sense, when you look at, if agriculture is our backbone, this area is very fertile. Can we decapitalize Nairobi? Can we have just the way we've seen Tanzania and we've seen Nigeria, they have decapitalized the initial capital city just because of other reasons. For us, it would be, can we go to, let's say, can we take this capital city to Isiolo? Can we take to Turkana? You know, we grow that area as we are trying to minimize everybody trying to come to the capital and just taking up land here. Yeah.
It's interesting what the South Africans did. I mean, the judicial capital is on one end, the legislative and the executive. That way, even services can grow in between cities. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good suggestion.
Yeah.
One of the things that supports Kenya's economy is that it's diversified, and the services industry has really supported Kenya's economy. But of course, the impact of that in 2020, you know, messed things up. So much as the agriculture is the backbone of Kenya's economy, is there any way that we can diversify even more?
We can, and we are on the right track, I believe, as a country. When we look at tourism as one of the services, you know, tourism was really affected by COVID because all the hotels closed. But the government came in through TFC, which is now part of Kenya Development Corporation, got a government injection of 2 billion to just help these hotels come back. So one of the ways we can grow is just what do we start? We start from what do we have first? What are the resources that we have? We start with those ones, and then we maximize on them. We make sure that we get the best rate of investment, return on investment. We maximize on that. But then we are seeing SMEs. SMEs are a major game changer in our economies, because first of all, employment, we can see even in the survey, employment increased by around, I think, 6.1%. Well, this number people might really dispute it, because the mentality is that employment should be in the formal sector. But when you look at it overall, with construction, employment has really given a lot of in the infrastructure perspective, has really given a lot of youths our jobs. Well, they might see it as kibarua, but I believe we should always have the bigger picture. We should always have the bigger picture. So we will grow, and we are growing.
You believe that we are growing?
I do believe that.
Okay, when you mentioned infrastructure, the government has been pumping quite some amount of money there. And even, I mean, the expressway is set to open in a few weeks' time. So it means, and you're saying that the impact of these infrastructure projects will be felt in time. Could you just make that real for Kenyans? I mean, they see all this money going into infrastructure projects, but many people are sleeping without food, you know. Many, even if the growth is, say, 6% in employment, many are still jobless. And the education sector is also pumping in more graduates every year. And the joblessness or unemployment rate is still going high. So just, I don't know, make sense for Kenyans out of this.
Okay, the way I would say, look at it this way. Yes, and I know at some point you will come to the public debt issue, because it's very related to the infrastructure. We have borrowed to do a good thing. You know, in finance we say there's good debt and there's bad debt. In this case, I would say this is a good debt. if obviously governance and accountability is met. That's the condition, I would say. But we have made an investment in our country to reduce the traffic jams, for example, through the infrastructure in the city. We have made an investment in infrastructure to reach to places, you know. That means you will not have a problem wherever you are in Kenya. If you, for example, because I will relate this to SMEs, if you have an idea, and the government is really supporting SMEs. As an SME right now, you go to the bank, it is very difficult to be denied credit, you know, provided your SME, your ideas and your innovations are feasible. And which is, I think, the place we need to go for employment and to reduce poverty in Kenya. We have to take it like on a personal level. This mentality of Serikali's idea might not work. It has not worked for the last I don't know how many years.
But isn't the government supposed to create an environment that enables, you know, growth of even SMEs?
It is supposed, and it is doing that through the availability of funding. You know, when we talk about infrastructure, that means you as an SME can set up anywhere. You know, you can set up anywhere, and your products. Right now, people are doing a lot of online trading. Wherever you are, just tell me where you are. I'll send the product to you. You know, if it's a service, people are doing remote services. You know, this is only possible through infrastructure, IT infrastructure, the physical road networking. You know, that is the only way we are able to do that. So it is doing for the SMEs, and that comes back to employment. The government is trying to just catalyze these things called SMEs, get funding. You know, training. Even NGOs coming up in training SMEs to just ensure that they do it the right from the start. We don't want then SMEs to be an S. We want an S to be an M to be an L.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
a small to a medium to a large. You know, so we don't want them to die at S. And it starts at S. Look at companies like Twiga Foods. You know, it's a very good example of how an SME just started without even an office. They were listing an office space. You see, their success story. So we want more of Twigas to go from S to M to L.
But the numbers show that this is really not happening much. Yes, there are outliers like Twiga and all that, but 70%, strongly over 70% of SMEs die within the first 3 years of you know, opening up. So is there anything that can be done to increase the survival rates for these SMEs?
Yeah, I think long-term financial planning, you know, in that they need to just, you know, sometimes SMEs start to just to solve a short-term problem. You know, in that somebody is struggling financially, you just start something but then they have to really have the bigger picture. Look at it long term. Do the planning long term. And also what SMEs are told, you see, when they start making money, they start banking it very early. For large organizations, you have to like wait a bit, just reinvest in the business. I think that's one of the lessons we would say they need to learn.
And continuous learning.
Yes, and continuous learning.
That is very important. You mentioned how Kenya's tech infrastructure, IT infrastructure, has really supported Kenya's growth. And of course, just the other day, you know, Google is setting up here, Microsoft is setting up here. Kenya is technically the hub of the tech industry in Africa or Eastern Africa, just so to say.
Yes.
So what is the future of Kenya's economy in terms of now tech support, like technology supporting Kenya's economy?
Okay. Oh, I think we're doing marvelous work in tech support. There's a survey, or there's a short list that was done, the highest, the best performing SMEs in tech in Africa. Number 1 and 2 were actually Kenya. I think SocoNet, that was number 1.
Sandy was also there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Number 1 and 2 in Africa. You can imagine if we are producing number 1 and 2 in Africa, out of the top 10 lists, out of 100 lists, I'm sure we are penetrating that market very well. And this is something that even investors, VCs are seeing when they come to Kenya. They're like, this is a hub. You know, we are an emerging market. In East Africa, we are the people who we can talk, for lack of a better word, I believe so. So tech, I think we are very advanced, we are growing, and it is a big contribution to even us growing as an economy. Yes.
Could that be the answer to the high unemployment rate in Kenya?
It is one of the answers, because a lot of people are getting employment, you know, from tech. I think tech right now is the #1 employer of even graduates and everything. We have Google set up in Kenya. We have Microsoft. You know, we have the likes of Andela who is just promoting coders. You know, and promoting young people who are very fresh from school to think in a business mind way in terms of coding. It's no longer just about I can code. It's what can you code? Yeah. So it is.
And just the other day, the coding syllabus was, you know, approved by KICD.
Exactly.
So definitely we are in the right direction.
We are in the right direction.
Yes, we are having a conversation about Kenya's economy with a focus on the 2022 economic survey that released the numbers on how Kenya's economy performed in 2021, with the economy growing by 7.5%. Teresa Mutai was covering that particular release. Let's listen into what she had for us.
COVID-19 restrictions pushed to contract 0.3% in 2020, the first contraction in nearly 3 decades. However, the lifting of the restrictions and gradual reopening up of countries lifted economic activities, with Kenya rebounding to register a growth rate of 7.5%. This was driven by growth in sectors such as education at 214%, accommodation and food services at 52.5%, financial and insurance at 12.5%, while manufacturing rebound from a contraction of 0.4% in 2020 to 6.9%.
Overall, the country's economic performance for the year 2021 expanded by 7.5% compared to a decline of 0.3% in 2020.
Agriculture, which is the backbone of Kenya's economy, contracted 0.1% compared to a growth of 5.2% in 2020 due to poor and erratic rains.
It may be noted that the agricultural sector recorded a mixed performance, recording a contraction of 0.1% in 2021 compared to a more impressive growth of 5.2% in the year 2020. When all sectors failed to show any signs of growth, agriculture stood out with a growth of 5.2% 2020.
The value of trade increased by 26.3% to 2.9 trillion shillings. The value of exports rose to 743.7 billion shillings from 643.7 billion shillings during the previous year, with agriculture dominating the exports. On the other hand, the value of imports increased to 2.1 trillion shillings from 1.6 trillion shillings in 2020, with balance of trade widening 40% to 1.4 trillion shillings.
To continue accessing the international markets, noting that the number of reduced flights in and out of the country at that time, because when in and out flights were reduced, the challenges of the air freight was a big problem, and the government came in, gave subsidy, gave incentives, and as a result of this, they were kept afloat. These interventions were aimed at supporting the sustenance of our farming and communities by providing continued gainful employment for thousands of workers in the sector.
Even though Yatani expects the economy to continue growing, he says the growth is unlikely to match the 2021 figure due to rising inflation, higher fuel prices, and a weaker shilling.
Well, that was Teresa Mutai with that report from the Treasury that was releasing the economic survey of 2022. Kuriatani there just giving those numbers and the outlook for this year, including the fact that there was some growth in quarter one of 2022. And the cost of living is, or rather inflation, is likely to rise in Q2 and 3 based on rising energy prices. We are discussing those numbers and much more from the 2022 economic survey here on KBC Channel 1. Pauline, your thoughts on public debt?
So, first of all, we are at currently at around 8.2 trillion, which is around 68% of our GDP. Well, this it's how you look at it. There are countries who, like for example, Japan, whose debt to GDP is actually 100, so it's 1 to 1. So you will find it is not a bad thing to actually have debt. And as I said earlier, it's about, is it a good debt or a bad debt? Issues of governance, issues of accountability, strong financial management policies are what now you're able to distinguish, is this a good debt or a bad debt? The intention is that the debt is to spearhead the country, you know, to line it up. We can compete with other countries in terms of our growth and our manufacturing, all other industries, because that is the purpose of the debt. It's to reignite or to support the country to grow to be another level. Almost 50% of this, I think 57% of this debt is external borrowing. So there's also that aspect of internal borrowing where it is mostly held by commercial banks. There are few individuals who yes, they have invested, but that's a very small number. But mostly it's with the commercial banks. And now when people are talking about debt, and the concerns about debt is mostly the foreign debt. You always people saying, oh, we are becoming a slave of China, you know, things like that. For me, I look at it, are we using this debt the right way? Are there financial management systems to ensure that the accountability of all this debt, so that even when we are repaying this debt, we're repaying for something we can see? Well, can we see it? Yes, we can see it. Are there investments that we see and we are not able to match how much was used? As for example, the SGR, there are some of that. So what, personally as a citizen, as a Wanjiko on this perspective, I would urge the government, we are not saying don't take the debt. If you have analyzed and seen that actually taking debt is where we will grow as a country, take debt, but take it with the right intentions and use it in the right intentions. And there's some initiatives where we can see the government is trying to really, really push themselves to be accountable. For example, the rationalization of expenditure. In the past, we used to even take debt to pay recurrent expenditure, which is, it's like you taking a debt to eat, you know, basically to eat. But a debt should be something to move you to the next stage. So there's been that rationalization. We can see there's been an appointment in Treasury. There's an office for internal for independent. It's called an independent debt management office, where they want to see how can we just ensure there's a balance. There's a balance, and any debt that we take is actually prudently used for the growth, more of the development and not the recurrent. Yes. Yeah,
very important pointers there. When even as we look at that, I mean, it's so sad that the head of state himself admitted that 2 billion shillings is lost every day to corruption. And when you think about 2 billion shillings every day, probably that is 62 billion every month. Just how much that could do for the Kenyan economy, for the Kenyan people. So that means corruption is one place that Kenya needs to rein in on. Do you agree, Pauline?
Yeah, definitely. Our biggest challenge as a country right now, I believe, is corruption, because people have very good, we are very innovative, I believe so. We're very ambitious. We're very also ambitious. We want to get there. But then we just get lost on the way with corruption, because sometimes we even have this plan, we're going to do it, but then just this thing called corruption, which we just need to deal with. We just need to deal with it from even a financial, because corruption is so, it causes economic and social injustices. Where money was supposed to go doesn't go. What projects were supposed to be done at a value, the value for money is not achieved. So corruption is basically something we are dealing with, and we are praying that this thing is something that we just need to deal with, and it's through governance. It all comes back to governance. Where now, as even people are going to the polls this year, it's something, look at yourself and your life. Is there something you would want have to do or would have done, but then a corruption somewhere was a hindrance? You will definitely have some places you will tick yes. Yes.
And of course the power is in the hands of Kenyans to some extent. Yeah?
It is. Not to some extent.
In its entirety.
Yes, in its entirety. We choose our governance. So yeah.
as we've just said, that Kenyans have the power in their hands. I mean, we are headed to the electioneering period. Just what do you anticipate will be the impact of the electioneering period on the economy? I'll start with you, Pauline.
Well, we would first want to see a change. That is something we would want to see. We would want to, I would say, I personally would look up to the next president to have agendas of the economy at the forefront, because when you look at an economy, you're able to deal with so many things. Yeah? As I said, social injustices, economic injustices, you know, the rate of unemployment, you know. So the next incoming president has a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. He has a lot of work to do in perception and in reality. Mm-hmm. Because you see, also you might be doing something and people don't know. So you have to make sure also people are knowing what you're doing to appreciate you and actually to buy into your dream as a president. So all the best to the new president. We will pray for him.